game, goat versus fish. It's goat versus fish. Celebration! Celebration for goat versus fish! Celebration for goat versus fish! Celebration for goat versus fish! And celebration for inebriation, goat and fish, whether you are raising your verses to goat, whether you are raising your verses to fish, this place called the Redwood that welcomes goat versus fish, let us raise the verses if celebration and inebriation. We are here, we are just drinking some goat versus fish. We're just drinking some goat versus fish. Let us raise the verses to the goat! Celebration for goat! Celebration for goat! Celebration for fish! Celebrators who don't choose goat or fish. We don't think so. Oh, we do? Celebration for the fence sitter who chooses neither goat nor fish. Perhaps it is not inebriation. Perhaps you are high on the fence. Perhaps you are high on the fence. And celebration for goat versus fish. Celebration for goat versus fish. Some of you may be wondering, what is goat versus fish? Why is goat versus fish? Who verses that we can tell you about it? Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish is goat versus fish. And it is what it is. Goat versus fish, the mighty goat fish. Goat versus fish is a goat and a fish. And the goat and fish versus. Goat versus fish brings the verses to you. We promise the verses we tell you are true. What's goat versus fish? You haven't a clue. But it is something to do. It is something to do, and it comes from within you. Are you goat or are you fish? Celebration for goat! Why do you choose goat loudly so all can hear? Why do you choose goat? Because they're fuzzy. Make some noise for fuzzy goat. Make some noise for fuzzy. For fuzzy goat. For fuzzy goat. Fuzzy goat. Celebration for fuzzy goat. Oh, the fuzz of the goat, the very envy of the slimy, scaly fish. Celebration for goat. Celebration for goat. Celebration for goat. Celebration for fish. Celebration for fish. Celebration for fish. Goat are always versus the fish. Fish are always versus the goat. And it was written and it was wrote that goat versus fish and fish versus goat. If that doesn't make any sense, just please please don't sit on the fence. No, 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 don't sit on the fence. Are you goat or are you fish? Celebration for fish! Celebration for fish! There does not seem to be so much celebration for fish. There was a lot of celebration for goat, but not so much for fish. Even as you all drink like fish, not so much celebration for fish. Celebration for fish! Celebration for fish! Now there's a versus for fish. Sustainable fishing. Sustainable goat versus fish. It will be forever goat versus fish. You just watch goat versus fish. Why do you choose fish? Why do you choose fish? The fish lives in the ocean. Celebration for the ocean-dwelling fish. What brings you here? What brings you all the way to the land of the fish to versus the goat? Celebration. And we are here for you. Would you know that you're here for goat versus fish, and goat versus fish is here for you? Celebration for you. Celebration for you who are here for goat versus fish. Some say goat versus fish is a sham. Some say goat versus fish is a scam. Some say goat versus fish is just spam. But I am what I am. It's not dolphin versus lamb. No, 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 no. It's goat versus fish for as long as you wish. Are you a goat or fish? Are you a goat or fish? Are you a goat or fish? Are you a goat or a fish? Are you a goat or 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 a fish? Don't go and sit on the fence. Don't go and sit up on the fence. Are you a goat or fish? Are you a goat or fish? Are you a goat or fish? A goat or a fish? Goat or a fish? It's a land of goat and a sea of fish. It's a sea of fish and a land of goat. There's no need for pretense. Do not sit on the fence. This is goat versus fish. All together now. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. This is goat versus fish. I see that fish is swimming round the bend. And I ain't seen a versus since I don't know when. I'm stuck up on the fences. Versus keep driving by. Oh, but I cannot choose a goat or a fish, and I don't know why. Oh, when I was just a young one, I was told by my parents, always choose a goat or fish, don't sit there on the fence. But I sat on one at Redwood, and I'm bound to cry. Oh, when I hear that verse is coming, I think I'm going to die. Oh, with gold versus fish and the unity of gold, the fish. Gold versus fish. Celebration! Make some noise for the unity of goatfish, for the unity of goatfish. Oh, wow. Oh, my verses. It's the unity of goatfish. We are feeling a great unification here with goat versus fish, here with goat versus fish. But there are still some of you who have not chosen goat or fish. You! Oh, yes. You. We saw the hesitation. We saw the hesitation in your eye about goat versus fish. Are you goat or are you fish? We hear goat, we are fish, but are you? We are speaking directly to you. Are you goat or fish? The pitiable fence sitter sits on the fence. Oh, they sit on the fence, say goat versus fish, it makes no sense. The fence sitter's always whining at goat versus fish. Are you just going to keep talking about goat versus fish? Is this whole song going to be goat versus fish? You should really stop after 5 minutes, goat versus fish. You should give up on goat versus fish. You should take down your goat versus fish channel. You are very embarrassing. You're embarrassing goat versus fish. You're embarrassing yourself, goat versus fish. You'll never get selected for America's Got Talent, goat versus fish. Never. You never will. There are some who reject goat versus fish. Do you reject goat versus fish? Celebration for the fence sitter who accepts goat versus fish. They're there. We will be ready for you when you are ready to choose goat or fish. Just stop interrupting the set of goat versus fish, please. We're trying to do a versus here. We're trying to entertain the goat and fish. We're trying to sell some inebriation here, goat and fish. So we just have one versus for you, fence sitter, pitiable fence sitter who chooses neither goat nor fish. Do you be goat? 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 Do you be fish? Do you be fish? Do you be fish? Do you be goat? Do you be goat or do you be fish? Because the goats do be goat and the fish do be fish. Do you be goat or a fish? Or don't sit on the fence. A goat or of the land and fish or of the sea. But what kind of goat or fish do you be? Do you be goat or a fish? 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 Because the goats do be goat and the fish do be fish. Do you be goat or a fish? Cabra contra pez. Cabra contra pez una otra vez. Now repeat after goat versus fish. Oh, doobie 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 doobie. Oh yes. Doobie 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 doobie. One more verses now. Doobie 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 doobie. Doobie 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 doobie. A doobie goat, a doobie goat or a fish, because the goats do be goat and the fish do be fish. The pitiable fence sitter sits on the fence. No, get off that fence, fence sitter. It's dangerous up there. No, this indecision will end your verses. Oh, but the goats do be goat and the fish do be fish. Do you be goat or a fish? Celebration. Some say that goat versus fish is stupid. Some say that goat versus fish is genius. Once, and this is a true verse, is goat versus fish was just versing along the street that you call it, yes. And one pointed at goat versus fish and said, "You's a bitch." They said this to goat versus fish. But goat versus fish is not a bitch. Well, everything is goat versus fish. Everything is goat versus fish. It has always been goat versus fish. So by technification, goat versus fish is a bitch because everything is goat versus fish. Goat versus fish is goat versus fish, the goat fish, the unity and disunity of goat and fish. Are you goat or are you fish? Celebration for fish, celebration for fish. What do you say to the goat? What do you say to the goat? Fish is better than goat. Classic verses. Classic verses. The fish said, I'm better than you, goat. I'm better than you. Any verse you can do, I can do better. How will goat ever recover? How will goat ever recover on goat versus fish? You are all stupid. You are all genius. And you are all goat versus fish. Celebration for goat versus fish. Goat and fish versing times day. Oh, before we forget, we are here in Los Angeles, so. Cabra contra pez. Cabra contra pez una otra vez. Cabra contra pez. Porque sí, porque no, porque después. Y entonces, cabra contra pez en mi imaginación. Tacos de birria y pescado al carbón. Cabra contra pez es una celebración. Cabra contra pez en mi corazón. Es cabra contra pez una otra vez. Celebración por cabra contra pez. Celebración por cabra contra pez. Now, goat and fish, we just had a verses that was called, Are You Goat or Fish? Celebration for fish, celebration for fish. It is another fish. There was not much celebration for this fish, but suddenly there's fish all around us. Everywhere's fish. Fish everywhere, fish everywhere. But don't blame goat versus fish for any fishing scams you may fall for. That's on goat. That's totally on goat. Goat and fish. No, it is not a humorous versus. Don't fall for that fishing scam, goat. Goat versus fish. Let's do a versus. Let's do a versus, goat and fish. Let's do a versus. Goat versus fish, we have been all across verse America. We have been all across verse America. And speaking of fishing scams, back to that verses, Versing Times Day was just happened. Versing Times Day when the goat says, I love the fish, and the fish says, oh, I love the goat, and they get together and they have a verses, they have a nice verses. Have you ever looked at a heart? Have you ever looked at a heart? If you take the humps off of the top of the heart, you are left with a V. And if you take the humps of the heart and then you just break them apart and you do this, it's an S. A heart is but the love of goat versus fish. It is but the verses. It is the very verses of goat versus fish. It's basic verses. It's totally basic verses. But some hearts are broken. Some verses are broken. This next song was inspired by goat versus fish. We don't know if a beetle is a goat or a fish, but goat versus fish certainly inspired the Beatles, whether they were goat or fish. This next song is about a fish. Oh, Marlin, please versus me. I'll never versus a goat. Believe me when I tell you. you wouldn't burst me anymore. Well, you know, I couldn't choose a side. Oh, Marlin, please believe me. I'll never versus a goat. Believe me when I tell you, I'll never versus a goat. Believe me, Marlin. Believe me, Marlin. Oh, yes, oh, yes. Yes. Are you goat or fish? Oh, yes, it is you. The question has come for you now. Are you goat or fish? Celebration for goat! Celebration for goat! Goat, you are surrounded by fish.